Let's start with prayer. God, we're grateful that we can gather today and be in your house and be together as a church family. And I see folks walking in with smiles, God, and they're pleased to be here, and they're thankful for the air conditioning and just grateful that we can worship you and praise you and study you and hear from you. And so we pray that we're going to do that today. We pray that these songs that we sing, God, will be from our hearts about what we believe to be true about you, and the words that we're declaring, God, are what we know about you and what we've experienced from you and what we expect from you and what promises from you. So thank you, God, for all those things, and we pray that you would receive this time of singing and giving and studying and listening, God, and being together as a blessing to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand together and worship God this morning. Starting on Saturday morning, if your car looks like mine does, then you should bring it down here next Saturday morning between 9 and 12. The teams are doing one last fundraiser for camp, and it'll be an opportunity for you to support our teams. You did a great job supporting them at the yard sale, and we're sending, I think, close to 6 to camp this year, to Nazarene NYI camp up in Riverview Bible Camp, North School Camp. And so we want to help them go and help them not have to accrue a whole lot of expense to do that. So if you can help by bringing your car down, that would be great. 9 to noon here at the church. And then that evening, we will have our monthly family night here at the church where we get together. We just have a good time of fellowship and games and snacks and foods. And this year, this month actually, Sonia and I are in charge of this one, and we are doing Christmas in July. So we would love for you to come out. We're going to have Christmas trivia. We're going to sing some Christmas songs. We're going to have Christmas decorations up. We're going to have Christmas desserts and goodies that we are hoping you'll bring, and also bring a $5 or under white elephant gift. We're going to have a gift exchange, so that'll all be happening downstairs here in the church. And if you've never been to one, they're a lot of fun just to come out for family night, besides the fact that it's air conditioned. So you can be here in the cool of the church on the Saturday afternoon when it's still supposed to be hot. So we hope you'll all come out for that next Saturday night between 6th and 8th, Christmas in July. Notice the Vacation Bible School is coming up. That'll be next month, so be geared up for that. And there'll be a meeting coming up to include some of you and invite you to be a part of planning for that, those sorts of things. So Vacation Bible School is in next month, so we'll get more information as we get closer to that. But next Sunday after church, we invite you to stay. We're going to have a graduation celebration here at the church. We haven't had a chance to do that with our graduates. We have 4 graduates this year, if you're not aware of who they are. Joy Alvarez graduated from high school from East Valley this year. Her dad, Beto, Cassie's dad, also Mindy's husband, he graduated from the GED program at Central Washington University, so he got his GED. That was a huge accomplishment for him, so we want to celebrate with Beto as well. Joyce DeLuna graduated from Eisenhower this year, so we're going to celebrate with her. And then Kyle graduated from Eastern Washington University. He's finishing up 1 or 2 more classes during the summer, but he'll be back this fall. But he actually did his walkthrough in June and did his actual graduation celebration then. But we haven't had a chance to get together with any of these folks, so we're going to do that next Sunday after church. Lupe's got a crew that are putting together a great little celebration downstairs of goodies and cake and sandwiches and snacks and things. So please stick around. Great chance for you also to bring them a card or just visit with them and say thank you or congratulate them and help encourage them about what's next in their lives. So I think that's everything you need to be aware of. So pay attention to your bulletin. This summertime rolling by pretty quickly, and we want you to make sure you're included in everything that's going on. If our ushers will come, we'll receive our offering. Ask God to bless the giving that we're going to do and we're going to talk about today, and being obedient to God as we do this area of our worship to Him in our giving. So thank you for doing that. Thank you, Wayne. Let's pray. God, we're grateful that now we continue to worship you, not only in just song and music and words, God, but also in the giving that we're going to do this morning. And pray that you're blessed by it and you would just bless every giver as you promised to do that. And we just thank you that we have this opportunity to worship you with our finances and our money, God, that you have given us. And so we want to be good stewards of that and give to you, to mirror your gifts to us. Thank you for all you do for us, for always providing for us and taking care of us. We're just grateful today that you love us. In Jesus' name, amen. Worship.
Majesty.
God, thank you that you have received from us. We pray and hope and believe that you have received from us this offering of music and of words and of declaration about what we believe to be true about you, what we're counting on from you. And God, we do want to tell you that we love you, and we do pray that you have received this offering, God, of praise and of giving and now of gathering. God, this morning we believe that you are here and you're present because you promised to be, because you walked in here in the heart of every believer as we house the temple of the Holy, or we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and so you live within us. You've come with us, God, and you've journeyed through a week of difficulty and stress and things that we've sometimes felt overwhelmed by, and maybe you've journeyed with us through a week of celebration and excitement and joyful things, God. And either way, we are confident that you have been with us, and you have promised to continue to be with us, to never leave us or forsake us. And so we are grateful that you love us so much that you would never walk away from us. You would never abandon us. And God, you are always with us, so we just want to say thank you for that. God, this morning we're reminded of some things that folks have carried this week that have been difficult. We're reminded that Dick and Jody had to say goodbye to Dick's brother yesterday at a funeral service, and pray you would comfort them and just bless them and give them strength. And thank you for the time they had away where we could go and rest and relaxation with family, as they didn't had to gather with family for a difficult time. And so we pray that you would just give them stamina and strength to face now life without his brother, and pray that you would just comfort them with the joy and the memories of life with him. And God, this morning we pray for Tanya and Newell and their kids, knowing that this week has been difficult and that they've had to say goodbye to David, the kids' dad, and pray you would just touch the kids as they are struggling sometimes with that loss, and sometimes just going through life and not maybe recognizing it, but it's still loss nonetheless. And so we pray for Tanya and Newell as they lead their children, and we pray for their extended family, and pray that you bring comfort, and the memories, the joyful memories that they have, God, would be a blessing, and that you would just be with them in a special, special way. And God, we also are aware that Pat Durkee's husband, Don, is now dying, and pray you would just comfort Pat as she makes preparations for his care, and he's now at a cottage in the meadow, and pray you would just give her peace about his care there, and decisions she and Don have to make together, and pray you comfort her during this difficult time. And pray that we can rally around her with prayer and support and encouragement. God, we're just thankful that you are well ahead of us in being aware of these needs and of the things that we need from you, and the questions we have, and the fill in the blanks that we have for you. And God, we're also aware that you love us and you've given us blessings this week, and we want to say thank you. Thank you for the way you're going to answer the needs we have, and thank you for the things you've already done in our lives, because you love us, and we want to say thank you. God, thank you for being here this morning, and I pray now as we study your word and we listen to the message that you've given us, God, that we would hear from you and we respond, and we would be obedient to listen to what you speak to us about today. Thank you for all that you do for us and the way you love us. We're just grateful today. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, worship team, for leading us. If you're not aware, Thursday morning, Thursday or Friday? Thursday morning, yeah. Thursday morning, many of you may know David. He's the father of Tanya's and Newell's kids, Alyssa, Alex, and Juanito. And I met him, first time I ever met him when we first arrived here. He was actually at Cottage in the Meadow and was near dying or near death then. And miraculously God sustained him, and he lasted and survived that time, and almost 2 full years since then almost. And but Thursday morning he's always had a physical struggle, and he had hepatitis and some other liver issues, and just a lot of many myriad of physical issues. And Thursday morning, went early in the morning, I went in the hospital, and then about 10 or 11 o'clock that morning, he was removed from life support, and he quite quickly died. And so we would appreciate, I know Tanya will appreciate your prayers, not only for them as well, because they're saddened by that, certainly, but also for the kids. You know, there's moments I bet when the kids are just playing, and it maybe slips their mind because they're kids, and then there's moments when they remember, and it's very difficult for them. So to have watched their dad be sick, and then now I've had to say goodbye to him, it's going to be hard on them. His funeral service will be next month. August 5th is the date for that, so we're planning on that here. We just needed some time to get that planned for, and so family wanted to wait and have that happen. And then I got a message this morning, literally on the machine. Pat Durkee left me a message and said that Don has needed to be moved to Cottage in the Meadow, and so that's generally a place when somebody's making their last are taking their last few days or months or weeks of time on this earth. And so be praying for Pat as she has to make decisions about his care. And I don't know, I haven't spoken with her. I literally just got the message as I came in this morning, so I don't know if he's coherent and when he is aware of what's going on, but please be praying for them for encouragement and strength as they face this new road of life together. The other thing I want to say to you is yesterday we went down to Union Gospel Mission. I want to say thank you. What we heard time and time again, how blessed those folks were to receive a nice meal, and the worship music was awesome, and the fellowship was great, and your attitudes were superb, and your smiles on your faces just blessed those folks as we were there to serve and to love and to give. And it was an open door of opportunity for us to again connect with people that we don't often connect with, to connect with them and love them and encourage them and to be a blessing to them. I know it's something we do every year, and you've probably been a part of it. For me, it was my first time because you did it before I got here, the first year we came. Then last year, I was in Mexico when it happened, and so this is the first year I got to go, but it was really a great time being down there, and I know people were blessed by the way you give to them, and you love them, and you encourage them, and just a smile and a burger. It's that simple, and they were touched. So thank you for going down there. Again, fantastic job, as always, when we partner together to do those kinds of things. So if you have a Bible this morning, turn to Matthew 23, and we're going to get there, but eventually. Sometimes that happens in the message, the way it unfolds when I prepare it. The scripture comes at the end, Matthew 23. And this message today, and the series we're beginning, originally I planned on it for 3 weeks. It may actually go a little bit longer as I began to put it together. I was like, wow, there's just too much that we need to cover that it's not going to fit in 3 weeks. But this message, if you're a person who likes a typical sermon with a lot of scripture and a lot of points, and you got to have them all start with the same letter and all these things happen, then you probably may not follow me this morning. This may also be a message that you're not used to. But before we dive into that, while you're turning there, I noticed there's 2 candles lit. I don't know if kids lit them or who lit them, but while you're turning there, does somebody light them, want to share maybe why they're lit? Angela.
I just don't know how I did it without my church family before, so things are like falling into place again.
Good.
So,
very
thank
cool.
you.
Good. Good job. There's 2 lit. Did you light both of them?
I did.
Okay.
And the one is the little boy that's downstairs that
cool.
his family need lots of prayers. And I got him to come with me today.
Very cool. Good for you. Good job. Well, this message this morning may be different to you, and we're going to start talking about a message called Money Matters. I'll get into that in a little bit, but before we start that, I'm going to tell you a story that will kind of give you the context of what we're going to talk about today. In the winter of 2009-2010, Sonia and I were pastoring in White Salmon, Washington. That's just down the Columbia River Gorge, right just west of Goldendale, about an hour, at the Nazarene church there. And it was a church that was smaller in size, and they weren't able to financially pay for a full-time pastor to be at the church all the time. That would be my only job. So I worked outside of the church. For about 8 years of our time there, 7.5 or 8 years of our time there, I managed the lumberyard hardware store. And then towards the end of that time, I shifted gears and we moved over to a place in Hood River called Gorge Rentals. And Gorge Rentals was a vacation property management company. And we managed anywhere from the Dalles down to Stevenson, and on both sides of the river, the Columbia River splits Oregon and Washington. We had properties on both sides. We managed about 200 vacation and rental homes that we took care of. We handled all the financial properties or parts of it. So if Dual had a house and you wanted to rent it out either long-term or vacation rental, then we would manage all that for him, and then he would get a check at the end of the month, and we would do a portion of that for our business. And so I joined that company, and my job in that role was to be the maintenance guy. So when your sink got clogged, or your sink leaked, or your window got broken, or your locks needed changed, or the light fixture went out, or the ceiling fan didn't work, or whatever happened in the home that required maintenance that you would not have to do as a renter, not a homeowner, they would call me. And I'd knock on your door, and I'd show up, and I'd go in and fix your ceiling fan, or I'd unclog your sink, or I'd do all those sorts of maintenance things that you do in property management. And one time, it was the winter time, and of course, if you're familiar with Columbia Gorge winters, they're regularly famous for getting these huge blasts that last about a week or so, and then it kind of mellows out to just low 40s and cold, nasty, foggy rain the rest of the winter. But these blasts come in, and the gorge is famous for getting socked in with heavy snow and tons of ice. In fact, it's so famous that in Troutdale, when you come out of the gorge on Highway 84, if you're heading east on Highway 84, there are these 2 large gates that when the weather gets too bad, literally the gates will swing closed across the freeway and you cannot pass through. Shuts everything down, no transportation goes through all the way through Hood River. And Hood River is a little town that, if you're familiar with it, up on the flats it levels off, but most of it's built on the hillside. Most of the town and the downtown area is on the hillside. And so when it's icy and nasty, people really, the town shuts down. In fact, they will shut off streets, they will close off streets because you'll start to go down one and you're not going to stop. And so you're going to hit somebody coming through on a cross street or something like that. It's just very dangerous. And so it happens usually every year. They have a 2 or 3 day spell or sometimes a week-long spell, and it was no stranger this year. Same thing happens. Ice and snow sunken in, trees come down, branches come down, and everything gets to be just dangerous and bad. Well, this particular winter of 2009-10, I was working for that company, and we managed a property for the Lutheran church in town. The Lutheran church had a rental property that they had income coming in from, as well as their church income, and so we managed it for them. We took care of all of the financial parts of it. The rent would be paid to our company, and then we filtered back to them, and I did all the maintenance. And as happened, that storm kicked in, and often what happens in those kind of areas, not here, we haven't had it, maybe we're just tougher or we don't get the winters like they do. When that happens, city life shuts down, and sometimes church life shuts down. You get the call on a Sunday morning, and it's like, hey, weather is too bad, we don't want you out on the roads. This was before Facebook Live, and before we could do all those things where you could log on and computers and do church at home. This was before all of that, so churches sometimes just shut down. They said, it's too dangerous, please do not come out, or you may get here, but you may not get back home. So we would some churches would cancel services. Well, it was an extended period of time that the weather was bad. And so this Lutheran church had to cancel services for a couple of weeks in a row. And when that happens, regular things that happen in the life of the church don't get to happen. And one of those regular things that happens in the life of the church on every Sunday that didn't get to happen for that Lutheran church was that they had no income. They couldn't take an offering. There was no tithes and offerings. There was no church service to receive your giving. And so they had no income. So one day they called the office, and our office manager gal, Rachel, answered the phone, and we had a talk with the pastor, or I don't know if it was the office manager from the church, who it was. And they explained this to her, and they said, we haven't had services and we need income. It happened to be around the first of the month. They said, can we get a hold of is our rental check ready for us? Can we come down and pick up a rental check? Because then we could use the rental check to pay the bills and pay our staff and our salaries. And they arranged for that, and so they got that ready, and they came down and got that. And then the light bulb dawned for Rachel. Rachel's a great gal. She and I worked closely together because she managed all the properties, and she would tell me what to go fix on these properties. And so we talked a lot. She'd been in my church services, I think, twice while we pastored there. And so we had a pretty good friendship, pretty good relationship, and we would visit and talk. And the light bulb kind of dinged on for her, and she looked at me and she said, so if you don't have service, the church has no income. That's right. And she said, and so for salary, she said, as the pastor, she said, kind of a crude statement, but it had a lot of truth and reality to it. She said, you just get a cut out of the plate? I said, yeah, essentially that's it. The offering plate goes around, and a portion of that income does pay my salary. And so that church there happened to be at the time was a smaller church, and they could provide us a home and the utilities and a small salary, but it wasn't enough for us to live on, so I had to work outside the church as well. But that was the truth of it, was that in that setting, and in every church setting, the staff and the salaries and the expenses of the church literally come out of the offerings that we receive on a Sunday morning. We don't have a rental property. We have no other sources of income. So in that case, the light bulb dawned for her, and she said, oh, that's how a church gets its income. Yeah. And that's how a pastor gets paid. Yeah. And that's how you pay for all the other things that a church needs to pay for. Yeah. And so it dawned on me, something that I already knew, but had never thought about at that time, and I've thought about it a lot since, and I think it's important that we're going to talk about this now for the next few weeks, that a lot of people, inside the church even, and outside the church, don't have a really good understanding or a really good picture of this unique animal that we call the church and how it operates financially. It's really quite different than, in some ways, than your income in a regular outside the church secular income is that you would receive. So I'm not saying that you're dumb or you can't figure it out or you don't know. Just a lot of people don't have the opportunity to understand the inner workings of the church and how the finances work. If you haven't sat on a board, you haven't been a part of the church finance committee, you haven't served as a counter to see what comes in income, then you wouldn't know these things, and you may not be aware of what we have to do and what we're responsible for as a church each and every week. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the different aspects of church and money. And often people don't like to talk about church in that way. That somehow talking about money or having money be an issue or focus in the church is somehow not godly or some crazy thing. Or somehow conveying that we don't have enough faith or something else. And certainly when the subject of finances or money is discussed from the pulpit, people begin to squirm. And that's because of this truth. Tom Felder, in his book, The Tithing Principle, says this: "A quick look at society reveals that money, unlike any other physical object, is inseparably tied to human emotion and the perception of power." Money is inseparably tied to human emotion and the perception of power. Now, the last part about perception of power, I understand it. Money gains you influence often, and that's true. We're not going to focus so much on that. But money is inseparably tied to human emotion. In other words, our wallets, our finances, our checkbooks, if you still actually use those and know what they are, the teens probably don't even know what those are, our debit and credit cards, and even sometimes the cash we have in our wallets or purses may have the tightest grip on our hearts. It may have the biggest effect on our emotions. And yes, I know by the time this series is over, you may be somebody that comes to me and says, "But Pastor Jim, I don't struggle with that area." Or, "Pastor Jim, did you know that this person who's really generous?" I know there's always an exception to the rule. But I know this, that there are two things that the church rarely discusses and rarely discusses well. Ironically, those two things are also the two major reasons for divorce. And those two things are money and sex. And the church doesn't talk about either one very often. In fact, this is the first message or series of messages that I've ever done since we've been here. Next week will mark 2 years for us having been here at Bethel. It's gone by like that. And this is the first time I've talked about finances. Not because I don't like to or because it's a taboo subject, because I think it's important. You're going to see why in just a few moments. But because it's just become time that we just also discuss this, and you'll see why in a moment. Daryl Gill, our counselor down at the Union Gospel Mission, and you guys know Daryl that comes here, he says that sometimes the two biggest things that cause disruption in families and in marriages and in the lifestyle of the home are finances and romances. And we're going to talk about both today. Or not romances, we're not going to talk about both today, we're going to talk about the money part of that. Even just the fact that I would say money and sex in the church, people get a little weird. People get a little fidgety. Don't talk like that. Don't say those words in the church. Don't talk about that kind of a thing. Yet we know that both are gifts from God. We won't get into the second part about how that's a gift from God, but we're going to talk about the first part and how it is a gift from God. And we're going to talk about it here today. And I believe it's important that we talk about it. And you know why? Because Jesus did. Jesus talked a lot about it. In fact, 16 of the 38 parables that he shared talked about finances, money, or possessions. Nearly half of the parables that he told talked about money and finances. And the gospel is an amazing 1 out of 10 verses deal directly with the subject of money. The Bible offers us, as a total, 500, give or take a few, verses on prayer. There are less than 500 verses about faith. Those are two major things in Scripture, don't you think? Prayer and faith. In our Scriptures, there are over 2,000 verses that talk about money and possessions. Do you think it's kind of important to God? I believe God gave it to us, these verses and these instructions and these parables to us for two reasons. Number one, he knew we struggled with this area. He knows his creatures well. He knew this would be an obstacle course for us and sometimes something we would definitely trip over. And number two, he knew that in order for us to be more like him, we had to give like him, we had to act like him, we had to be obedient to him and do what he tells us to do. And so he tells us repeatedly how he wants us to handle and manage the things that he has given us. So believe it or not, it's okay for us to talk about money or finances on Jesus' time because Jesus talked a lot about it. And no, this isn't an opportunity for the church to get more of your money or to beg you for money. The next few weeks of messages that we're going to talk about will be an opportunity for us to gain an understanding about why we give and how church finances work, the blessings of giving as promised by God, and the dangers of not being honest with God and the withholding of blessing that comes when we're not. This week we're going to talk a lot about church finances. How does our church operate? How does it work? It's a unique and weird thing, and it's important that you understand how we receive income and what do we do with it. This is the portion of the annual meeting that most people kind of tune out and fall asleep. It's that portion of the annual meeting that you get the packet of that you kind of skip over and you want to see what's the pastor's report and what the youth group do and where the missions group go and oh yeah, there's the finances. Let me tell you this also, that at any time you can come down to the church You can call the church office. You can ask me. You can ask Brenda. And we would happily tell you what we've got for finances, where it's being spent and how it's being used, all those sorts of things, what has been coming in, and all those sorts of things. Now, the one bit of information that I don't have access to, is I choose not to, is how much you give on a regular basis. The only people who know how much you and I give on a regular basis are Brenda, who is our church treasurer, and the counters that go in every week, and they are responsible for counting the offerings that comes in. A couple of them just walked back in the church this morning because they just got done doing that counting. And they're entrusted with that confidentiality that they don't share that with anybody else. And the issue isn't how much you give as much as it is, are we regularly and obediently giving faithfully to God as He's asked us to? So let me begin to explain a little bit about what my friend Rachel discovered several years ago. All of the income that is necessary to operate everything in this church, from the lights being on, to the staff that operates here, to the salaries, to the toilet paper, to the insurance, and our giving beyond, which I'll explain that in a little bit. Every dollar that we need to operate, every ministry that happens in this church walls and outside the church walls in our community and our world, every dollar of it comes from your giving and mine. That's where it all comes from. The weekly offerings that you give, they come in these little bags, and we take them and we count them, we deposit them in the bank. That's how we operate all of the things that we want to have done here. While we were at General Assembly, one of our general superintendents said this. He was retiring, so he was safer to say this. He said, God has all the money He needs to do whatever He wants. It's stored in your pockets. Think about that for a second. God has all the money He needs to do whatever He wants. He does not need more money. What He wants is our obedience in this area. It's stored in your pockets and mine. And while we're on that subject, I want to clarify something in case you ever have a question about this. And I don't say this to be boastful or bragging or prideful or anything like that, but sometimes the question comes up. Do Pastor and Sonia tithe to the church? Yes, we do. We receive an income just like yours. We are given us resources and income just like you are. God gives it to us just differently through the means of the church. And we believe that we have to be obedient. We don't get an exemption card in order to be obedient in our giving either. Now, I will tell you that there have been times in our lives, seasons in our marriage, though this has been a struggle. Because there have been times in our lives and seasons in our marriage where it's been, if we tithe, there's not enough. If we tithe, this bill doesn't get paid. If we give, and we give honestly, and we give what God is asking us to give, not just what I'm more comfortable with, then there's not enough for this or that, to pay this or that bill. Not just this or that evening out, but to pay the car payment or the gas or to get groceries or whatever. And so there have been the tensions in our family, not because we don't want to be obedient, just because the reality is it's tough. And every family faces it, every couple faces it. I have to tell you that if you're a couple, you've got to face this together. This has to be an issue you discuss together, because it will be an issue that will divide your marriage or your relationship if you don't. And it's tough, and you have to come to an agreement on it, and you have to pray and ask God, how are we going to handle this? If you're single, it's a little easier because it's just you and God. But if you're a couple, then you need to be on the same page about this. So yes, we do our giving as well. And as well, it's important that you know that I expect several things of our staff members. We have staff here. Our staff in our building are myself as the pastor. I'm the only full-time staff. Sonia is the church secretary. She's paid staff. She gets paid part-time for 20 hours a week. Melinda is our church treasurer. She gets paid for 10 hours, church janitor. She gets paid 10 hours a week. And Charlie gets paid to do the lawn care around the building once a week, to take care of the lawns and weeding and that sort of thing. And I ask those people, as leaders and staff members, we expect you to be givers. I also expect our board members and our refocus leaders and our ministry leaders to be givers. Now you might think, Pastor Jim, that's pretty harsh. That's pretty dogmatic. You're telling people what to do with their money? Well, no, God does that. I just emphasize that in order to be an obedient, godly leader, a leader means somebody follows you. A leader means we've chosen you as the church because we feel like you have a spiritual maturity that will enable you to lead our church well. And in order to lead, you've got to lead in this area of life too. So we expect our church board members and our refocus members, team members, and our ministry leaders NYI, that means missions, that means teens, that means men's, that means women's ministries. Those leaders as well to be givers. Do I demand that? Do I police that? No. But I expect it because God expects it. And the reason we do is because in many times, in all of those areas, we are making financial decisions about how we are managing God's resources that He's given us. There are many times, in fact, every board meeting, half an hour before the board meeting, your finance committee meets. It's a portion of our board that meets to discuss the finances of our church. Then during board meeting, we gather and we discuss those finances after we've kind of culminated all the things we need to discuss. And we make decisions about things we're going to purchase, about things we're going to do, about how much we're going to save, about how much we're going to pay. And so it's important, vitally important, that the people who are given that responsibility to lead in those areas, whether it be the refocus team or the board members or a ministry leader, you're making financial decisions with God's money that we should be giving to. Sure, it's easier to spend somebody else's money when it's not ours. But it's important that we are leading in this area. So I ask all of our leadership in every area to be givers. So let's go back to this question. What does the church do with the money it receives, and why does it need it? First, let me ask you this question. Share with me, and go ahead and shout out the answers to me to these questions. Share with me the regular monthly bills that you have. You don't have to tell me about your Discover or your MasterCard or Visa or all that other thing. Regular monthly bill. Okay, I heard rent. Groceries, lights,
Water.
Clothes for the kids.
Okay, clothes for the kids.
Insurance.
Insurance, I heard that with food, I heard.
Gas in the car.
Gas in the car, good, thanks Dan. Wi-Fi or internet, yeah. Internet, yeah. Animals, okay, we don't have animals here unless you classify one, but we don't have animals here. Allowances, okay. Okay. Somebody first service, somebody said Starbucks. Yeah. Somebody said Dish TV, yeah. You know what? You know what? The church, now you just listed all the things that you regularly pay, and I have the same list of bills like you do, the insurances, the gases, vehicle maintenance. Somebody else said this morning, a good and an important one was that regular routine repair and maintenance on your own homes. You have to do that sometimes. You have to fix the furnace or deal with the plumbing or put a new roof on, those sorts of things. You know what? The church has the same set of bills. The exact same set of bills. Give or take a few. We don't have any animals to feed and we don't have any clothes to buy, but we do have coffee that we buy every time the coffee guy comes by, a box of coffee, $40. There's another downstairs in the cupboard. If we're really sucking it down like water, then there's $80 because we get 2 boxes if we have a lot of things going on. So we do have a coffee bill, believe it or not. We have Wi-Fi, we have insurances, we have all those things, and typically our bills are larger for a couple of reasons. We have more people to take care of. We have more coffee to pour and to make. We have a bigger building. It costs more to keep this building nice and cool and comfortable for you right now than it does your own home, because this building is at least 3 or 4 times the size of your homes. So we have the same bills and the same insurances and the same all those things, transportation costs, repair and maintenance costs that you and I do in our own personal lives. They're just oftentimes on a much bigger scale. Add to that now the 4 paid salaries I just told you about. On a monthly, I didn't get the opportunity to figure out how much those bills cost us every month. The average is going to be somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 a month we spend on expenses here in the church. That includes an average or approximate cost that we spend on salaries of $6,500. Now, if you've ever been an employer, then you know that your employee also gets paid. You know, that includes things like taxes and insurance and Social Security and all those things that the employer has to pay as well. L&I, the employer has to pay as well as the employee. So some of that, the $6,500, includes all of the 4 salaries and the extra little things you have to pay as an employer. So you have all the regular expenses that we have to pay for regular bills to operate the building, all of the salaries that we have to pay to operate the building, and then it's also important to you to know that while you give of your tithes and offerings, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in the coming weeks, the church also gives. So we don't keep all the dimes and nickels and pennies and dollars that you give. There's a portion of our giving that goes right back out into the world. Now, yes, some of that happens in different forms. If we know somebody that needs help with their rent payment or their gas card or whatever, sometimes that happens. or if we give to a specific ministry in town, somebody's house burns down, we want to help them. Sometimes that happens in a unique and once-in-a-while type way. But on a regular basis, 10% of the income that comes in this church goes right back out the door. And it goes out the door in this way. So there you see on the list, regular bills like you and your household have, an approximate $6,500 of monthly staff salaries, and 10% of our giving that comes in is sent back out in the form of what are called budgets, or Nazarene budgets. That's a weird term that you don't hear anywhere else really, but Nazarene budgets. Nazarene budgets include these things. We pay towards the World Evangelism Fund. The World Evangelism Fund covers the salaries of all of our missionaries that are full-time missionaries on the mission field. We recognize that that's a difficult role, and often it's done in many various countries under difficult situations. And so we don't want to add the stress. We're so invested in missions, we don't want to add the stress of having somebody have to find a full-time job or get donations while they're there fundraising their own money. We fund and pay for the salaries of our missionaries on the field. Also, that World Evangelism Fund pays for all of our general superintendent salaries, the general operations of the general church in Kansas City, and the staff that happen there. All our buildings, the publishing house, all the things that happen there. The World Evangelism Fund covers that. The other part of that 10% is something called pensions and benefits. We have a retirement program for pastors, senior pastors, ordained ministers, and missionaries. So that when they come off the mission field or an ordained minister retires, there's some sort of a retirement program that the Nazarene Church has. So part of that 10% pays for a World Evangelism Fund. Another portion of that 10% covers pension benefits. Then we also have universities and colleges worldwide. When Sonia and I went to the General Assembly this year, there were booths all over the place, dozens of colleges, universities, and seminaries that we have in our United States and worldwide that are represented there. And so part of our giving, that 10% giving that goes back out the door, funds those colleges and universities and helps to pay for those. Another portion of that 10% pays for our district offices. In Spokane, Washington, our district office is there, and they're a representation of our local church in a district setting, and it pays the salary of our district superintendent and his family, and the staff that operate there. And once in a while, and it will happen on August 13th, the district superintendent will travel here and he'll preach in our services, and he'll be a part of our church that day. All of that comes out of 10% of our regular income. So, for instance, if we receive $5,000 one week in our giving, out of that $5,000 comes the salaries, comes the expenses of our monthly expenses, our bills, the water bill, the PP&L bill, all those bills, the insurance, all those sorts of things. And right off the top, first thing, $500 or 10% of that gets sent back out the door to pay for these things. Because we believe that if we ask our church to be obedient in giving of their funds, and because God has said so, then as a church we need to do that also. And frankly, none of this stuff would happen without your giving in mind. It wouldn't be able to be possible. Another expense that we take on is our Faith Promise giving. You know, every early March, we have a dinner downstairs to emphasize missions. Then we have a Faith Promise campaign, and we talk about how much money we want to raise to do our Faith Promise projects. Those are things like Union Gospel Mission Barbecue was funded through that program yesterday. The work project we did out at Lost Creek Village was funded through that program. When we give to the Jesus Film or World Mission Broadcast or Nazarene Theological Seminary, those things come out of the Faith Promise giving that you give. Crisis funds are giving out of the Faith Promise giving, all kinds of things that happen. And we committed to raising $21,000 above our regular giving to fund those projects. We pray that we're faithful. We pray that God will bless that so that we can do all of those things that God has asked us to do. And in order for all of that to happen, and there's stuff I've left out, I don't have all the accurate numbers for you, but I just want to kind of give you an overview and overall picture of what the church giving looks like. In order for all of that to happen, it comes from your giving and mine. 10% comes out of whatever came in that bag today. And because we want to be faithful managers of what God has given us, faithful stewards, we also have to add into that equation regular repair and maintenance on our buildings. A couple summers ago, we put a new roof on this building right here. And last winter, we were sure glad we did. It cost us $28,000 just to roof the building. Wow. That has to come out of the tithes and offerings. When we tore down the parsonage, that bill, because there was asbestos in there, because of different things, cost us nearly $20,000 to get rid of that parsonage. Take it down, get rid of the building. It was little, just needed to be taken down. We're going to put in lawn out there right now because we don't know what God intends for us to do with the property yet. That's several $1,000s to get the property back into a manageable condition. Several years ago, you voted and approved to take on a loan to have the parking lot redone. As of March of this year, we still owe $33,000 on that loan. We pay $1,000 a month. That's above and beyond our principal that we have to pay, what the bank asks for. We pay extra because we hope it'll cut the principal down and we'll pay off the bill a little quicker. So there's repair and maintenance things that need to happen. We did the bathrooms this year because they needed to be updated and some things needed to be repaired. That came out of your giving. We want to take care of, update and upgrade some of the things downstairs in the kitchen. That's going to come out of our giving. It only can happen if we are faithful and obedient in our regular giving to God. We've had to do some things in order to be good, faithful stewards of what God has given us. The other thing that we're diligent about, extremely diligent about, and I have to say, I'm very grateful to two specific individuals, Brenda and Jeff, because they are watchdogs with our finances, and I love it. I would much rather have somebody be squeaky tight with our finances than loosey-goosey.
Amen.
So I am happy that Brenda can tell me to the nth penny where everything goes. And Jeff has served on district boards. And not to say that the rest of our church board isn't important and responsible for all these things, but they are gifted in these areas and really a blessing to our church when it comes to finances. And how do we faithfully honor God with our giving and how we manage what He has given us? These are just some of the expenses that the church has on a regular basis. And that doesn't count things like curriculum that needs to be bought once in a while, the toilet paper that you use every time you come in the building, the coffee that is in the cupboards, the vacuum that still works, and the garbage bags that Melinda needs to clean the church, the regular things, the paper that Sonia needs to print, the sound system that needed to be updated, all of those things all have to come out of that one bit of giving. If you're interested to know, last year our total income from March 1 of 2016 to February 28th of 2017, that's where our church financial year operates, March to February, we raised $230,985, which sounds like a huge amount, and it is. I can tell you that that's sometimes 5 times the budget size of some of the smaller churches in our district. That's a huge amount, and it's great that you are faithful, and it's a blessing, and God has rewarded that. But I can tell you this, if I'm honest, if we look at last year's giving compared to this year's giving at the exact same times, we're at about $13,000 less. That's just reality. I'm not trying to be a downer or squeeze blood of return or beg for a moment. It's not what we're doing today. I just want to make sure we all have an accurate understanding of how the church works. Most all of you receive an income, and you expect it, and you work for it, and you get it. Because your employer has guaranteed it and will give it. And you don't question whether or not it will happen. The church finances all operate based on whether or not you and I are obedient. It's a whole different ballgame. And let me add something also that may be obvious to most all of you, but I want to state this because it's important because I've heard this question before. The Nazarene, this Yakima Bethel Church of the Nazarene receives no income from the general church of the Nazarene. In other words, we get no help to pay the bills of this church, the expenses of this church, from the general church. In fact, it's reversed. And every church worldwide, regardless of size or ethnicity or location or economic status or anything, is asked to give to fund the global work of the church. So we're not alone. Now I'm telling you all this because it's not because it's time for the church to ask you for money. That's not what we're about, and that's not why we're doing this. Because God can do whatever He wants, wherever He wants, whenever He wants, if all of you only gave $1 a week. The amount of our giving isn't the issue. The obedience and honesty is. Every year you receive a statement of your giving in January. In January, you get the statement from Brenda, and it spells out where every check went, how much you gave every week or every month, or however regularly you do that, or irregularly, or however that works. And it tells you what you gave it for, whether it was faith promise, or if it was for the youth group, or if it was for missions program, or it was for something else, or it was just general tithes and offerings giving. And you get those statements every year. And generally they're given out, and we get them, we go, oh, okay, cool, I can take that much off my taxes. And we don't often stop and think about, Lord, in comparison to what you gave me this year,
was this honest giving. In comparison to what you've asked me to do to be obedient in my giving, is this honest giving. And so because we're talking about this, next week I've asked Brenda, she already got it to me, they're in my office, all sealed up in an envelope, stack them on my desk. She's printed out your half-year or 6-month giving reports. Because I want to challenge us to take a look at those in light of this discussion that we'll be talking about next week. Why do we give? And the blessings that come in giving, the incredible blessings, the exciting opportunity we have to be obedient to God, and He loves to shower blessings on us for that. And then we'll also take a look at a couple weeks later, the danger of not giving obediently and honestly. But that record will give you a mid-course or midstream evaluation of, Lord, have I been obedient? And I would challenge you. I challenge First Service this way this week, without the statement even. Go home and ask God that question. Lord, am I being obedient? Am I tithing to you? Regularly, faithfully giving? Or am I just tipping you? Do I just give you a little bit when I feel like it or you've done something nice for me? Or do I regularly commit to tithing and giving regardless? How am I being obedient to you, Lord? How am I following you? I told you a little while ago that, I think it was during our annual meeting, I told you that in the light of our church as a whole, if we statistically looked at our church, 1/3 of our congregation regularly gives. The harsh part of that is to say that 2/3 don't. Again, I'm not trying to be the downer, I'm trying not to be point fingers at you, and an issue is not amount. So please don't think, well, I give $10 a week, isn't that good enough? If that's what God has called you to give, and that's where God says you are being honest and obedient and faithful, then yes, that's exactly what you should be doing. The question is, are we doing that honestly and obediently? Or am I only giving a couple bucks every few months because it makes me feel good and it lessens the guilt a little bit more, and the conviction goes away? In the coming weeks, we're going to see that God is very cut and very dry and very black and white about this on both sides. The blessing and the cursing. Being faithful in little and being trusted with much, and not. I challenge you when you receive that giving statement to make it a matter of prayer between you and your spouse or you as an individual. Ask Him what He wants you to do. And I do know this is not a prosperity message. This isn't something where I say to you, if you give $100 next week, God will bless you in the coming month with $1,000. No. There's nothing biblical that supports that. There is biblical support that says when you give, and you give faithfully and honestly and obediently, He says, I will throw open the doors of the storehouse and bless you abundantly. And that blessing may come in a raise, or an extra job, or some overtime, or how about the tires don't wear out so fast, or how about the gas goes further in the car, or how about you just haven't had to take a sick day and miss work. Or how about you haven't had to pay an insurance premium or a copay because you haven't been sick? Or whatever other variety of ways where you look at your life and you say, wow, I may not have had a raise or an extra check or something financially in the mailbox, but God has sustained me and provided for me consistently, time and time again, and I can trace that back to my obedience in my giving. Thank you, God, that I'm doing my best to be obedient before you, where I'm honest about that, and you promised to bless that. And this isn't my plan, this is God's plan. God clearly tells us this plan. Obedience brings blessing, disobedience brings cursing, or a withholding of that blessing. This is found in Deuteronomy chapter 28. Stay in Matthew, we're going to go there, I'll read you 28 for you. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 to 2. If is the huge key word there, 2 little letters, a big huge word. If you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all His commands I give you today, the Lord will set you high above all the nations on the earth. All the blessings will come on you and accompany you if you obey the Lord your God. All these blessings will come on you. And then if you go on to read the rest few verses in 28, you'll see all the blessings that He lists. A variety of different ways where God will promise to bless you if we fully obey the Lord our God. I'm always intrigued when I hear a politician or I hear people say, God bless America. Now, I love our country. I don't want to live anywhere else. I just came back from a week in Mexico. And while we like Mexico, I'm happy to live here. We have huge, abundant blessings. I love our flag and I want to defend it as much as I have opportunity to do so. I love our veterans. I will stand behind them and support them as much as I can. I love my country. But when I hear these words, God bless America, you know what I think? Why? I'm not trying to be a downer on our country. But I think, why do we expect blessing if we're not matching it with obedience? And oftentimes we do. God, I can't make it financially. I'm struggling. Is it being matched with obedience? Moses was really clear. God was really clear through Moses' words. If you fully obey the Lord your God. If I asked you this question, if the survey was done, and it was done, over all of the people in America who say that they are evangelical Christians, following Jesus, Bible-believing, Bible-carrying, 52 weeks a year going to church, got the bumper sticker, I am a sold-out, dedicated, obedient Christian of God's. If you surveyed all of those people, and you asked them this question, what percentage, 0 to 100, are regularly faithful givers? What do you think the answer would be? Of all those people who say, I'm a fully committed, totally sold-out follower of Jesus, what percentage of evangelical Christians with that description, matching bumper sticker and the fish on the back of your car, would claim 0 to 100%? What percentage do you think are actual regular givers? 25%? 45%? 2.7%? Or 65%? C. That means, believe it or not, that means that 97.3% of people who claim to be Christians, who say, I am fully serving my God, I go to church 52 weeks a year and twice on Sundays, and I read my Bible, and I know all the books of the Bible, I quote all the verses, and I do all the stuff, and I got the fish, and I got all the stuff, and I wear the t-shirt, and I say the right things, and I post all the right verses on Facebook, and I do all the stuff. 97.3% of those people are not fully obeying Jesus Christ and God's commandments to give regularly. I'm not judging them because I don't know those 97.3% of people. I'm just telling you statistically, this is the reality. That was a stat we got from Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey. 2.7% actually give. And the other 97% will say, I fully obey God, except in this one area of my life. Why? Because finances have the tightest grip on our hearts. And I'll also add to this, that if you're struggling financially, and you know you're not being obedient in your giving, likely the two are connected. Deuteronomy 28:15 says this, the flip side of the cursing and blessing. However, if you do not obey the Lord your God and do not carefully follow all his commands and decrees I'm giving you today, all these curses will come on you and overtake you. And then if you really want to get depressed, read the rest of Deuteronomy 28. He lists all those curses that will come on you. If you don't fully obey the Lord, he's not going to bless you. So you can't disobey God and ask for blessing in the same breath. If you're struggling in areas of life and you're not being obedient, the two are likely connected. Now I know somebody may ask me, Pastor Jim, though, didn't Jesus come in the New Testament, and aren't we living out the New Testament church and Jesus' commands and all of that stuff? Yes, and didn't Jesus come to free us from all that legalism and all that law and all that stuff? Yes and no. Jesus came to free us from the trappings of legalism and obedience to God being driven by legalism rather than love for him. He did not come to excuse us from obedience to him. We don't get to potluck pick and choose. In fact, Jesus spoke really clearly about this one in Matthew 23. You're probably there and you're wondering, finally, he gets there. Matthew 23, verse 23. When we look for a New Testament instruction from Jesus about what he has to say about giving and tithing, we'll talk about what tithing is next week, he says this, woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites. Pretty harsh. You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin. That's a tithe. But you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter, justice, mercy, and faithfulness, without neglecting the former, your tithes. He is not excusing. In fact, later on in the scripture you will read where Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. That's your God, or that's your taxes and your government. Give to God what is God's. Many times, 16 out of 38 parables, Jesus talks about giving and how we're supposed to handle and manage our finances. We're not going to get into it today, but in the coming weeks we're going to talk about the fact that everything we have and have been given and everything we've received from God has already been his. Our role is to simply manage that in a way that honors him and says, God, you've given me this much. Let me bless you by obediently and honoring you with the way I handle it. That not only includes my giving, but that also includes what I spend the rest of it on. I'm not here to police that or tell you. That's between you and God. But am I being honest and obedient about the way I handle the rest of my finances after I tithe? And then the question becomes, do I give God first or do I give God leftovers? That's a whole other subject for another week. But Jesus never, ever tells us to stop giving. In fact, just the opposite. He talks quite a lot about it and tells us specific parables about it. And here he's instructing the Pharisees to continue tithing. Tithing and giving are godly truths for two reasons. Number one, he's teaching us to trust him. He's teaching us to trust him and say, give to me first and I'll take care of the rest. If we do that backwards, what are we telling God? I don't trust you. I don't believe you will do what you've said. I don't want to be the guy that does that. Have I struggled with that? Yes. Every family, every person does. The other reason Jesus calls us and expects us and tells us to give is because it makes us more like him. This is a growing opportunity for us. A maturing and shaping opportunity for us where we become more like Jesus Christ and his Father God. His Father was the ultimate giver, giving us the ultimate gift, the best gift in the world that we will never match in his Son, Jesus Christ. There's not a dime, not enough money in the world that I can ever give to match the gift of Jesus Christ and his forgiveness and his promise of eternity. I can't do it. But can I mirror that act of giving? And does God ask me to? Yes. And that cultivates a heart of generosity and a heart for me to be able to give to others as well as to his church. Next week, we're going to explore some more questions about why we give and where we give. We're going to take a look at questions like these. What's a tithe? That's an odd term we've never heard before unless you're in the church or you grew up in the church. If you're brand new to church, you probably don't, you may not even know what's a tithe. You hear Pastor Jim say, we're going to receive our tithes and offerings. What is that? You don't hear, bring a tithe of McDonald's French fries to, you don't hear that term anywhere else. Nobody pulls his drive through and says, Pastor, you'd like to order a tithe of French fries. Nobody says that. Nobody uses that word anywhere else. But in the church, we talk about it all the time like we're supposed to know what that is. So we're going to look at where was the first tithe ever found. See, there's a trivia question for you. Where was the first tithe ever found in Scripture? Study that, see if you can find it out. What is a tithe? What does that mean? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's the difference between tithes and offerings. Is there a difference? There is. We're going to talk about that next week. Why God first? If God doesn't need my money, why do I have to give to him first? We're going to talk about why do we give to the church? Can I give to Billy Graham Evangelical Association? Can I give to the Union Gospel Mission? Can I give to something else? Yes, you can. But why does God ask us to give to the church? And why does he ask us to give to his church first? We're going to talk about that because there's biblical examples of that. How much do I give? Well, that's a hot button topic. Dave Ramsey said, people always ask me, do I give off the gross or off the net? And he says, I don't care. Only 2.7 of you are actually doing it. And how often do I give? That's a different question we may not get into. But those are some of the questions we're going to answer. And then the following weeks, we're going to talk about the incredible, exciting blessings that God promises when we give. And again, we'll talk about the dangers of not being honest and not giving. We're going to see some really cool examples of people here in our congregation who will tell some stories, of biblical examples of people who said, I am putting God first. Like remember the widow of Zarephath, who put God and his servant over her son who was going to die. And she gave to him first. That's an incredible story. We're going to look at a story that says the amount wasn't as much as important as the obedience. We look at the story of the widow's mite. We're going to look at the dangers of not giving when we study the story of Ananias and Sapphira, who lied about how much they actually gave. It did not turn out well for them. Those are some of the areas we're going to go into. Today was just an overview of how the church works, and I hope it was informative for you and important for you to get an understanding of how we work things out as a church and why we do what we do. And I want to leave you with a little thing to think about before we close in prayer. I'm going to read to you a definition about tithing. And in the week, I want you to think about this, or before you go, and think about when you think this might have been written. Because often we think about how this is just an issue we're dealing with now. My grandparents were great; they never had to deal with this, or Jesus never had to deal with this, or this is just something that we're talking about now. It must be important to talk about now. The economy's in the tank. The taxes up the yin yang and all this stuff. Why are we talking about it now? Listen to this quote and see if you can discover. I'll share with you next week when this was shared. Tithing is a keystone to the entire wall which Christianity erects to hold back the onslaughts of materialism. That's a big phrase. It's kind of thick with words, so let me read it again and kind of explain it. Tithing is a keystone to the entire wall which Christianity erects to hold back the onslaughts of materialism. In other words, to keep ourselves from being overwhelmed by things and stuff and materialism, we erect this wall of defense. And some of that is giving, some of that is generosity, some of that is prayer, some of that is scripture reading, some of that is all kinds of things. And one of those key cornerstone elements of that wall that protects us from being materialistic is tithing. It is important because the rest of the Christian answer to the human problem depends in large part upon it. This generation is experiencing a new consciousness of need for a fuller dedication of life to God by those who profess the Christian faith. The trends in current civilization indicate that we must go deeper in faith if we are to go farther in progress. Any thoughtful person is made aware of, every day, of the conflicting forces which are warring in the world. This is a time which cries out for a more complete surrender of money and life to the will and purpose of Almighty God. This is a time that cries out for a more complete surrender of money and life to the will and purpose of Almighty God. Think about when you think that might have been written. I'll share that with you next week, and I think you'll be surprised. Next week, I'll share with you those giving statements and give you an opportunity to reflect on how God has been challenging you and how you've been obedient. But in this week, I would encourage you, like I did first service, to pray these two things. Number one, God, am I really being honest about what I'm giving? Or do I give enough just to ease the conviction? And number two, God, would you challenge me in any new way in my giving in this area? Is this an area of obstacle for me? Is this an area of struggle for me? Would you help me to be obedient? And I promise you, not because Pastor Jim has all this wisdom or because he's always got it right, but because Scripture promises us that when we get this area right with God, we find contentment and peace in this area of our finances, giving regularly and honestly to God, incredible peace comes and abundant blessings come. He promises both of those things. And it's exciting to hear the stories and see the lives lived out in that pattern with God. He desires that for us. He wants us to be excited about giving. He wants us to be joyful givers, cheerful givers, not fearful givers. He wants us to get excited about partnering with Him and being obedient. And He loves, just like every father does, to bless you when we get it right. Let's pray. God, thank you for your call on our lives to be more like you. And we want to do that, and we want to do that in this area of our giving. God, I pray for every family or person or couple here today who would ask you, Lord, am I being honest and obedient in my giving? I pray you'd speak to them clearly, and maybe they're going to hear a yes, well done, keep going. And that's exciting, God, and I pray that for every person. Maybe they're going to hear some areas of correction or some adjustments that need to be made, and God, I pray we respond to those. We don't just listen. And God, I pray for those folks that might be struggling in this area. You might say, I'd love to, but, and there's a list of reasons why they think they can or they shouldn't. God, I pray you would give us wisdom in these areas. Help us to be bold and challenged by what you would call us to do in this area of our finances. Thank you so much for taking care of us. Lord, we don't have time nor energy to count the blessings you have given us in our finances, in our provisions, in our resources, and everything you do for us. But God, we do need to stop and simply say, thank you. God, I'm grateful that you're here with us today, and I pray you've spoken through your word and through the message you've given us and spoken to me. And I pray you would bless each person as they go from this place today. Thank you for every one of them and the family of God that we are together. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great rest of your day. Youth group is downstairs for lunch and the youth group, and then the rest of us are at home. Right?